The air in his room grew thick with the scent of damp plaster and something metallic, like old coins left in the rain. Every time the orderlies tightened his restraints, he could feel the coarse canvas bite into his skin, a sticky, cold sweat beating beneath the bindings. At night, he'd hear it. Not the expected hospital hum, but a slow, methodical scratching from inside the wall beside his head, as if something was patiently digging its way out. The doctors called it a delusion, a symptom to be medicated away, but the terror was a physical weight pressing down on his chest, making each inhale a struggle. He began to notice the smell of ozone, sharp and electric, right before the orderlies arrived with their needles, a warning his body learned before his mind could understand. This was the central, horrifying truth they refused to see. The very treatments meant to cure him were the bricks and mortar of his living tomb. His breath hitched, caught between a scream and a whimper, as the final, chilling realization took hold. He wasn't sick. He was being buried alive, awake and aware, by the only people in the world who were supposed to help. This is not a metaphor. For one man, it was a 5-mile descent into hell, and the only way out was to break the one thing holding him together. A metallic tang filled the air as he fell, the roar of wind stripping away all other sound. Then, a sudden, jarring impact, not the ground, but the sickening crunch and give of his own skeleton against unyielding force. Silence returned, deeper now, broken only by the faint, sticky drip of something warm onto cold stone. The serene, sun-drenched footage of small-town Ohio fades, replaced by grainy home videos. James Miller was a practical man, a structural engineer from Dayton who built his life on logic and stability. His world was one of measured calculations and predictable stresses. He had no framework, no equation, for the terror that was about to fracture it all. He believed in blueprints, in load-bearing walls, in things you could measure and trust. His world was Anna, his daughter Chloe, and the quiet certainty of a life built on solid ground. So when his best friend Mike, a seasoned skydiver, finally convinced him to try a tandem jump, James saw it as conquering a fear, a checkbox on life's list. Mike, ready to see the world from God's angle, buddy? James, just don't let go. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Narrator. He was joking, the last thing he ever said. Mike would never release his grip intentionally, but at 26,000 feet above the Texan plains, the impossible unfolded. The steady roar of the wind shifted, warping into a strange, metallic groan. The air in the cabin grew thin and carried the sharp, electric scent of ozone. A sharp, metallic snap. A scream was torn away by the rushing air. The GoPro footage dissolved into a dizzying vortex of sky and earth. Alarms blared their final warning before the footage cut to black. A faulty harness release. In a freak accident, Mike managed to deploy his chute. James did not. The ozone-tinged air grew heavy as James plunged 5 miles through the open sky. A primal dread, colder than the high-altitude chill, seized him as the world became a silent, rushing void. He didn't hit solid ground, but plunged through the dense canopy of an endless pine forest. The air thickened with the sharp scent of crushed pine and damp earth. A heavy, unnatural quiet settled over the woods, broken only by the faint crackle of settling branches. Every breath felt thick with the forest's ancient, watchful presence. Then, from deep within the woods, a sickening crunch of splintering branches echoed through the night. The scene shifts to a sterile hospital ICU, where monitors beep a steady, mechanical rhythm. James lay motionless, a statue of pain encased in that solid, unyielding shell. The air in the room smelled of antiseptic and a faint, coppery tang. Only his pallid, glistening face remained visible. Anna sat beside him, clutching his inert hand. Doctors had dubbed him the miracle of the pines. He had shattered his spine, pelvis, both legs, and his right arm. The lattice of branches acted as baffles, arresting his fall just enough for survival. But that survival came at a cost. A full-body cast, a rigid, plaster tomb. He was entombed in a medical sarcophagus, meant to stabilize his shattered frame for months. He was alive, but James Miller was gone, replaced by a thing that beeped and breathed and itched in a place it could never scratch. A low, electronic hum filled the sterile air, mingling with the scent of antiseptic and the faint, metallic taste of fear. His world narrowed to a blurred vision of the ceiling tiles. The cast became a constant, oppressive presence at the edge of his sight. At first, there was gratitude for the mending. Then came the itch, a deep, crawling sensation that was not just physical. The cast wasn't healing him, it was assimilating him. Vivid, waking dreams consumed him, where the cast became a living creature, slowly digesting his flesh. He'd jolt awake screaming, "It's eating me!" his voice raw with a terror that transcended pain. The nurses would soothe him, dismissing his frantic claims as mere side effects of the painkillers. Time-lapse footage showed days blurring into one another as James deteriorated. His eyes became hollow pools of paranoia, constantly darting toward the seam of the cast covering his chest. The air in the room grew thick with the faint metallic scent of old blood and antiseptic. In a hoarse whisper barely audible, James turned to Anna and asked, "Can you hear it?" The creaking persists, a low, persistent groan, like a house settling into its foundation. But this isn't wooden nails. It's my own body. A bad house, Anna. The doctors called it PTSD, but James was an engineer, a man trained to observe minute details. He noticed the plaster cast had developed a hairline fracture directly over his breastbone. Each day, he measured its imperceptible expansion, a silent progression that defied medical logic. The air carried a faint, metallic scent as the fissure widened, millimeter by relentless millimeter. James felt nothing of his body, but a deep pressure, a profound wrongness. A conviction seized him. The cast had been misapplied, fusing to his broken skin beneath. It constricted his diaphragm. A slow suffocation masked his healing. The air grew heavy with the scent of stale plaster and his own rising panic. Moonlight cut through the window, illuminating James's motionless form. He stared without blinking, his breath shallow and tight in his chest. A single tear tracked through the grime on his cheek, tracing a cold path. The medical scans spoke of acceptable progress, but James saw the truth. This prison wasn't temporary. This was his final prison. They were going to bury him alive inside his own flesh. The only tool left to him was the raw, untapped power of his consciousness. Outside, the storm raged, the air thick with the sharp scent of ozone and the distant, wet earth smell of grave soil. Within the suffocating quiet of his paralysis, a single, desperate thought began to crystallize. The hospital fell into a profound stillness, with Anna having departed to rest and James left in solitary vigil. The fissure across his chest had deepened, now a stark, shadowy crevice. A faint scent of ozone and decay lingered in the air, cold and heavy. It was the thunder that did it. A thunderclap of impossible volume rattled the bed frame, its vibration traveling through the mattress and into James's immobilized body. Deep within his plaster cast, he felt a sickening internal shift. The sharp, grating grime of a broken rib fragment, the metallic scent of old blood and plaster dust filled his nostrils as the pain clarified his thoughts. From that agony, an insane yet meticulously detailed plan snapped into perfect, crystalline focus in his mind. He had one chance to escape. The steady beat of the heart monitor quickened slightly as he began the breath control technique he'd read about for anxiety. First came slow, shallow breaths that tasted of stale air and a faint metallic tang of fear. Then, with a deep, agonizing inhale, he expanded his lungs against the unyielding plaster that encased him. A faint pop echoed from the crack, thin and sharp like snapping bone. Then came the pain, white and electric, searing through every nerve. He exhaled in a ragged sob, the air tasting of ozone and danger. And against all instinct, he forced himself to do it again. James's face glistened with sweat as his breath came in ragged, strategic grunts. The air grew thick with the scent of damp earth and the metallic tang of exertion. A faint, grinding whisper filled the space as the crack in the wall widened millimeter by millimeter. A primal dread took hold as cold, stale air seeped from the growing fissure. Time stretched into an agonizing crawl as he worked, not to break the plaster, but to create the tiniest void within it. He fixed his entire will on his right hand, also encased, where a faint, almost imperceptible gap existed at the fingertips. The air in the room grew thick and stale, carrying the faint, chalky scent of drying plaster and the coppery tang of old blood. Every minuscule shift was a monumental effort, a battle fought in utter silence, save for the frantic rhythm of his own heart. He worked his raw, swollen fingers until a nail caught the crack's edge. With a gritty crunch, a plaster fragment broke away. His bloodied fingertips emerged like something being born into the stale air. The rest of the night passed in a nightmare of microscopic progress. With the broken fragment as a makeshift tool, he worked at the crack, widening it into a jagged fissure. He peeled the cast back from his chest like a grotesque carapace, revealing bruised, wasted flesh and the soiled medical padding underneath. The air thickened with the cloying scent of antiseptic and decay. His newly freed right hand clawed at the padding, fingers scrabbling for the hidden fastenings at his side. The morning nurse entered, her tray clattering to the floor. There, in the bed, sat the miracle of the pines, propped upright. The air hung thick with the scent of antiseptic and something metallic, like ozone after a storm. His every ragged breath was a battle, a visible tremor of will against impossible odds. The shattered plaster of his torso cast lay scattered around him like a broken chrysalis, each piece a testament to his struggle. He gasped, freed from the waist up, his upper body a grotesque tapestry of purple contusions and weeping, raw flesh. His voice emerged as a dry, painful croak, each word a struggle against the lingering agony. James, it was too tight. The scars, livid on his arms and neck, spoke of more than flesh wounds. He'd aged a decade in those weeks, eyes hollow with a ghost's stare. His frantic self-extraction left new injuries, but it also sounded an alarm for the doctors. They discovered a compartment syndrome was developing, a silent, internal pressure. The very thing meant to heal him was, in fact, methodically destroying him from the inside out. His recovery has been brutal, and remains so, but he is healing. Was it a psychotic break? A trauma-induced delusion that, through some grim luck, spared his life? Or was it something else? something that left the scent of ozone and the taste of iron in the air? Or did James Miller, the engineer, correctly diagnose a fatal flaw in his own design? The body cast was donated to the hospital. It remains in storage. He never skydives, but some nights, he says, he has a different dream, not of falling, but of confinement within an endless white chamber that constricts, inch by inch. The air carried the sterile scent of bleach, thick and suffocating as the space diminished, and in that suffocating dream, a grim certainty settled upon him. He knew precisely what must be done. The fracture over the heart's location was starkly apparent. Narrator. The most profound cage is not always built from iron or rock. At times, it is forged from the substance intended to make you complete. So ask yourself this: if you were interred alive within your own being, would you possess the fortitude to dig your way free?